Hello friends, in today's session we are going to start with a new chapter, that is package java.lang. Okay, so we will start with a new topic, new chapter. Java.lang is automatically imported to all programs because it is very basic package. Java.lang includes the following classes. Okay, so whenever you are going to use these much classes, it will be automatically imported. Okay, boolean, byte, character, class loader, compiler, double, enum, float, inheritable, thread, local, integer, long, math, number, object, package, process builder. Okay, runtime permission, security manager, short, stack trace element, strict math, string buffer, string builder, string, thread group, thread local, throwable, and void. All these are classes, and these classes uh, are included in this java.lang package. There are also two classes defined by the character class, character.subset and character.unicode block. Java.lang defines the following input interfaces: appendable interface, character sequence interface, clonable, comparable, iterable, readable, runnable interface. Okay. Several of the classes contained in java.lang contain deprecated methods, most dating back to Java 1.0. Okay, so java.lang still is having many more classes. Those are deprecated because those were introduced in Java 1.0. Most of the deprecations took place prior to Java 6, and these deprecated methods are not discussed here. Okay, so after the Java 6, Java 86, all those methods those are deprecated are not discussed over here. Primitive type wrappers. Java uses primitive types such as integer, character for performance reasons. These data types are not part of the object hierarchy. Those are included only for performance. They are passed by value to methods and cannot be directly passed by reference. Those are primitive type wrappers, integer and character. Also, there is no way for two methods to refer to same instance of an integer. Okay. You will need to create an object representation of one of these primitive types. For example, there are collection classes discussed in chapter 60 that deal only with objects. Okay, so upcoming chapter there is a collection class that deal with only objects, and for that purpose we will need to create an object representation of one of these primitive types like integer, character, float, and etc. etc. To store primitive type in one of the classes, you need to wrap the primitive type in a class. To address this need, Java provides classes that correspond to each of the primitive type, like wrapper classes. Those wrapper classes we have already seen, like integer, character, float, etc. In essence, these classes encapsulate or wrap primitive types within a class, and those are called as type wrappers. Number. The abstract class number defines a superclass that is implemented by the classes that wrap the numeric classes like byte, short, int, float, and double. Numbers has abstract methods that return the value of the object in each of the different number formats. For example, double value returns the value, as in the case of double, float value as a float, and so on. Byte value, double value, float value, int value, long value, short value. These all give the particular value as the return value. Okay. So what is number? Number class is the superclass of all those classes. Those includes numeric types like byte, short, int, long, float, and double. This much you have to remember. And these methods will return some particular value in some particular format. The values written by these methods can be rounded. Number has 6 concrete subclasses that hold explicit values of each numeric type: double, float, byte, short, integer, and long. Double and float. Double and float are wrappers for floating point values of type double and float respectively. Constructors are float, double number, float number, float string, float number format exception. If you are providing string here, these cannot be converted to float representation, like you are writing over here hello. and you are trying to convert that hello string into float representation, this cannot be done. Only if you are passing any integer value in a string format, this can be converted to float value. Okay. So now, as you can see, float objects can be constructed with values of type float or double. They can also be constructed from the string representation of floating point number. The methods defined by float are shown in table 60.1. The methods defined by double are shown in upcoming table, which is number 16.2. Both float and double define the following constants. Okay, float and double constants are given here. Max exponent, maximum exponent added by Java EC6, maximum positive value, max value, minimum exponent added by Java EC6, minimum normal positive value, then minimum positive value by min value, not a number, NaN, not a number, negative infinity, size, the bit width of the wrapped value, and the class object for float or double. Byte value returns the value of invoking object as a byte. Static integer compare float number 1, float number 2. Compares the values of number 1 and number 2 and returns the result. Returns 0 if those are equal. Returns a negative value if number 1 is less than number 2. Returns a positive value if number 1 is greater than number 2. If first number is greater, it will return positive value. If second number is greater, float 2 is greater, it will return negative value. If both are equal, it will return 0. Compare to float f. Compares the numerical value of the invoking object with that of f. Returns 0 if both are equal. Returns negative if the invoking object has a lower value. Returns positive value if the invoking object has a greater value. Then double value returns the value of the invoking object as double. Boolean equals object float double. Float object returns true if the invoking float object is equivalent to float object, otherwise it will return false. Then static integer float to int bits. Float number returns IEEE compatible single precision bit pattern that corresponds to number. Okay, these all are methods that we are going to see. Okay, so practice of all these methods is out of scope, means it will require so much time. So better if you will write it down, or if you can take a screenshot of these methods and descriptions, you can try this at your okay. Sorry. That method static is float raw in bits, but return the IEEE compatible single precision bit pattern that corresponds to number. The not a number value is then float value returns the value of the invoking object as float. Hash code returns the hash code for the invoking object. Okay, you can write them down one by one, or you can take a screenshot of this screen. Then static float integer bits to float integer number. It is the float equivalent of IEEE compatible single precision bit pattern specified by number. So any number that you will specify, it will return its IEEE compatible single precision bit pattern for and its float equivalent will be written over here. Int value returns the value of invoking object as an integer format. Boolean is infinite returns true if the invoking object contains infinite value, otherwise it will return false. Static Boolean is infinite float number. If number specifies an infinite value, otherwise it will return false. Boolean is not a number. Returns true if invoking object contains a value that is not a number, otherwise it will return false. Static Boolean is not a number, float number. Returns true if number specifies a value that is not a number, otherwise it will return false. Long value returns the long value representation. Static float, part float, string throws number format exception. Returns the float equivalent of the string specified by string using radix still. Okay, if you are specifying a string that cannot be passed to float value, it will return the number format exception. Short value returns the value as a short format. Then string to hex string. Float number returns string containing the value of number in hexadecimal format. String to string returns the string equivalent of the invoking object. Then static string to string float number returns the string equivalent of the value specified by number. Static float value of float number returns float object containing the value passed in number. Then static float value of string float number format exception returns the float object that contains the value specified by the string in string. Okay, then byte value returns the value of the invoking object as a byte. Then compare double number 1 double number. Compare the values of number 1 and number 2. Returns 0 if values are equal. Returns a negative value if first value is less than number 2. If positive value, if the second value is greater than first value is greater than number 2. Okay, then compare to double D. Compares the numerical value of the invoking object with that of D. Returns 0 if both are equal. Negative if the first invoking object has lower value. Returns true positive value if invoking object has the greater value. Then long, double to long bits, double number returns the IEEE compatible double precision bit pattern that corresponds to this number specified in the bracket. Then static long, double to raw long bits, double number returns IEEE compatible double precision bit pattern that corresponds to number or not a number value is preserved and returns the value of invoking object as double when you are specified as double value. Okay, boolean equals object double object returns true if the invoking double object is equivalent to double object, otherwise it is false. Then float value returns the value of invoking object as a float. Hash code returns the hash code for the invoking object. Integer value returns the value of invoking object as an integer. Okay, is infinite returns true if the invoking object contains infinite value, otherwise it will return false. Static boolean is infinite double number returns true if the number specifies the number which is infinite, otherwise it will return false. Boolean is not a number returns true if the invoking object contains a value that is not a number, otherwise it will return false. Static boolean is not a number double number returns true if number specifies the value that is not a number, otherwise it will return false. Static double long bits to double long number returns double equivalent of IEEE compatible double precision bit pattern specified by long number. Long value give the long representation. Static double pass double string throws number format exception. See, whenever you are specifying here a string which is not able to convert it to numerical representation, every time you have to throw it, every time it will throw the number format exception. So better way you practice to call this function or write this function down into try catch block. Okay, so whenever there is a number format exception, instead of finding out why my program is crashing, why my Java file is not working, why it is corrupted, it is better way to write down everything into try catch block. Okay, practice to write everything in try catch block. So whatever for whatever reason your program is crashing, you will catch that exception into catch block. Okay, so every time you will specify a string over here which is not converted to numerical representation, number format exception will be thrown. Okay, no matter what. Returns the double equivalent of the number contains the string specified by the string using radix 10. Short value gives the strong short representation. Then string to hex string double number returns the string containing the value of number in hexadecimal format. Then string to string returns the string equivalent of the object. Then static string to string double number returns the string equivalent of the value specified by the number. Static double value of double number is the double object containing the value passed in the number. Okay, all this description is already given in detail, so no need to explain them again in the same wording. So I'm just reading them out. Okay. What you have to do in this case, you are going to write down this function name with the syntax. What is the input parameter? What is the where it is whether it is static or not? What it is written over here? What I am passing over here, and what is the name of the function and how it is written. Okay, so you just have to write them down, or you can take a screenshot. But no matter what, whatever you are whether you are writing these function names or you are reading them or you are learning them. You have to remember them or you have to practice them more. Okay, maybe in interview questions you may be asked with them, or at your job profile you may get required to use those functions at any time or at any part of your life. You will have to use those functions. Okay, so you have to learn them. I'm not explaining again because already it is explained in the table. Okay, just go through it and learn it properly and understand it. And most important point is you have to practice them. More you practice, more you remember. Okay. Static double value of string shows number format exception. Returns a double object that contains the value specified by the string in string. Okay, the following example creates two double objects, but by using double value, other by passing a string that can be passed as a double. Okay, so first is 3.14159 directly double is passable here. Second is 314,159 e dash 5. It is converted to double using the conversion function. No, so now both are printed over here. As you can see from the following, both constructors created identical double instances as shown by equals method. D1 equal to D2, D1 equals D2, returning true, and both are having same value so that they are equivalent. Understanding is infinite and is not a number. Float and double provide the methods is infinite and is not a number, which help when manipulating two special double and float values. These methods test for two unique values defined by IEEE floating point specification, infinity and is not a number. Is infinite returns true if the value being tested is infinitely large or small in magnitude. Okay, irrespective of what? Double and float values. If it is very much large or it is very much small, then is infinite will give you true. Is not a number returns true if the value being tested is not a number. The following example creates two double objects. One is infinite and the other is not number. Infinite, not a number. Example, new double 1/0, 0/0. Okay. D1 is not a number, D2 is not a number, D1 is infinite, D2 is infinite. Okay. So output is infinity true, false. Okay. And not a number, false, true. Okay. So first is infinite, true, not a number, false. First is what? 1 divided by 0. It will give you infinite. And it is number. So it will not, is not a number, give you false. And false true. 0 divided by 0 is not a number. Infinite is not true. And is not a number, will give you true. Okay. Byte, short, integer, long. The byte, short, int, long classes are wrappers for byte, short, int, long, integer type respectively. So constructors are byte number, byte, string, throws number format exception, short number, short, string, throws number format exception. Same for integer number, integer, string, throws number format exception. Long, long, string, throws number format exception. As you can see, these objects can be constructed from numeric values or for strings that contains valid whole number values. Okay, so methods defined by these classes are shown from table 16.3 to 16.6. As you can see, they define method for parsing integers from strings and converting string to integers. Variants of these methods allow you to specify the radix or numeric base or for conversion. Common radixes are 2 for binary, 8 for octal, 10 for decimal, and 16 for hexadecimal. These radixes we have already introduced in information technology part. If you are not IT engineer or you have not completed any engineering part, no issue. Okay, but radixes is a very basic part that is introduced in very basic level of engineering. Okay, so I'm just telling you for the sake of understanding, because in the when I was in diploma IT, there was radixes introduced for to us at the first year diploma itself. Okay, so if you are unknown to it, no worry, go to Google and find it out. Okay, now we will see those constants. Now we will see those constants: mean value, minimum value, max value, maximum value, size, width of the wrap value, and the type, class for object for byte, short, link, or long. Now, byte value returns the value of the invoking object as a byte. Compare to byte B, compare the numerical value of the invoking object with that of byte. Return 0 if both are equal. Returns negative number of if invoking object is lower, and returns positive if invoking object has greater value. Static byte decode string gives number format exception. Returns byte object that contains the value specified by the string. Okay, double value gives the double value. Boolean equals object byte object returns true if the invoking byte object is equivalent to byte object, otherwise it is false. Then float value returns the value of the invoking object as a float. Integer hash code returns the hash code for the invoking object. Okay, then int value returns the value of the invoking object as an int. Long value returns the value of invoking object as a long. Static byte, pass byte, string keeps number format exception, returns the byte equivalent of the number contained in the string specified by the string using radix 10. Static byte, pass byte, string integer radix, those number format exception, returns the byte equivalent of the number contained in the string specified by the string using specified radix. Short value returns the value invoking object as a short. String to string returns the string that contains the decimal equivalent of the invoking object. String to string byte number returns the string that contains the decimal equivalent of the number. Byte value of byte number returns the byte object containing the value passed in number. Then byte value of string whose number format exception returns the byte object that contains the value specified by the string in string. Static byte value of string into the radix throws number format exception returns the byte object that contains the value specified by the string in string using the specified radix. Byte value returns the value of the invoking object as a byte. Integer compared to short s compares the numerical value of the invoking object with that of s. Returns 0 if both are equal. Returns negative value if the invoking object is lower value. Returns the positive if the invoking object has a greater value. Then static short decode string throws number format exception returns a short object that contains the value specified by the string in str. Then double value returns the value of the invoking object as a double. Boolean equals object short object returns true if the invoking short object is equivalent to short object, otherwise it returns false. Okay. Float value returns the value of the invoking object as a float. Integer hash code returns the hash code of the invoking object. Integer value returns the value of the invoking object as an integer. Long value returns the value of the invoking object as a long. Then static short pass short string throws number format exception returns the short equivalent of the number contained in the string specified by the string using radix 10. Then static short pass short string integer radix throws number format exception returns the short equivalent of the number contained in the string is specified by the string using the specified radix. Static short reverse bytes short number exchanges the high and low order bytes of the number and returns the result. Then short value returns the value of the invoking object as a short. Then string to string returns the string that contains the decimal equivalent of the invoking object. Then static string to string short number returns the string that contains the decimal equivalent of the number. Static short value of short number returns the short object containing the values passed in the number. Then static short value of string throws number format exception returns the short object that contains the value specified by the string in str using radix 10. The static short value of string integer radix number format exception returns the short object that contains the value specified by the string in the string using specified Then static integer bit count integer number returns the number of the set bits in number. Byte value returns the value of the invoking object as a byte. Integer compared to integer I compares the numerical value of the invoking object with that of I. Returns 0 if the values are equal. Returns negative if the invoking object has lower value. Returns the positive value if the invoking object has a greater value. Double value returns the value of the invoking object as a double. Boolean equals object integer object returns 2 if the invoking integer object is equivalent to integer object, otherwise it will return false. Float value returns the value of the invoking object as a float. Static integer get integer string property name returns the value associated with the environment property specified by the property name. A null is written on scalar. Static integer get integer property name integer default. They returns the value associated with an environmental property specified by property name. The value of the default is written on the fader. Integer hash code returns the hash code for the invoking object. Static integer highest 1 bit integer number determines the position of the highest order set bit in number. It returns the value in which only this bit is set. If no bit is set to 1, then 0 is returned. Then integer value returns the value of the invoking object as an integer. Long value returns the value of the invoking object as a long. Static integer lowest 1 bit integer number determines the position of the lowest order set bit in number. It returns the value in which only this bit is set. If no bit is set to 1, then 0 is returned. Then static integer number of leading zeros integer number returns the number of high order 0 bits that precede the first high order set bit in number. If number is 0, 32 is returned. Then integer number of trailing zeros integer number returns the number of low order 0 bits that precede the first low order set bit in number. If number is 0, 32 is returned. Static integer passed into string throws number format exception returns the integer equivalent of the number contained in the string specified by the str using radix 10. Static integer passed in string throws number format exception returns the integer equivalent of the number contained in the string specified by the str using radix 10. Then static integer passed in string integer radix throws number format exception returns the integer equivalent of the number contained in string specified by str using specified radix. Then static integer reverse integer number reverses the order of the bits in number and returns the result. Then static integer reverse bytes integer number reverses the order of the bytes in number and returns the result. Static integer rotate left number n returns the result of rotating number left and position. Then integer rotate right number and returns the result of the rotating number right and position. Then static integer num integer number returns -1 if number is negative, 0 if it is 0, and 1 if it is positive. Short value returns the value of the invoking object as a short. Static string to binary string integer number returns a string that contains the binary equivalent of the number. Static string to hex string integer number returns a string that contains the hexadecimal equivalent of the number. Static string to octal string integer number returns a string that contains the octal equivalent of the number. String to string returns a string that contains the decimal equivalent of the invoking object. Static string to string integer number returns a string that contains the decimal equivalent of the number. Static string to string integer number integer radix returns a string that contains the decimal equivalent of the number using specified radix. Then static integer value of number returns integer object containing the value passed in number. Static integer value of string shows number format exception returns the integer object that contains the value specified by the string in str. Then static integer value of string integer radix shows number format exception returns an integer object that contains the value specified by the string in str using specified radix. Okay, so in this way we have completed some topics in java.lang. Okay, in the next session we will try to cover remaining topics. So meet you in the next session. Thank you so much.